Alcohol and dealing drugs.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me, and I'm going to just get right into it. I was born on August 31st, 1983 in a small rural town of Murray, Kentucky. Although the twists and turns of my life were apparent to no one at that time, God's plan for me was set in motion on that very day. I grew up out in the country with my brother and a bunch of different dogs. My favorite dog was Smokey, a brown chocolate lab that I got when I was around 12 years old. I love that dog. In fact, one time he fell out the back of the truck and hurt his hip, and he could barely walk for a few weeks. Guess where he slept? Yep, in my bed. I watched him like a hawk. I would even sit by him while he would eat his food in the utility room. A typical summer day for me as a child consisted of experimenting how fast I could ride my bike down the large gravel driveway at the end of our road without crashing, following the creek behind my house as far as I could, building forts in the woods, walking and running in the woods, and riding my bike up the big hills on our Charnship Road. And I would play basketball until my head and body felt so weak that I thought I was going to pass out. And being forced to help my mom snap green beans, cut okra, pick cucumbers, cut corn off the cob. She would say, "Help me work in the garden." I also spent much of my time throwing rocks at my brother and chasing him with sticks. It's what little brothers have to do from time to time in order to get respect from big brothers. All in all, as a young boy, I enjoyed life in the country and with my brother, just having fun and not really worrying about anything. My parents were only 18 and 19 when they had my brother, and 3 years later I came along. So it's safe to assume they lacked in maturity in raising us. My earliest memories of my parents' way of life are clouds of smoke, loud music, and my dad and his friends drinking beer and playing cards at the dining room table. During the summer on the weekends when my dad was off from work, we would all go down to the Kentucky Lake to a swimming hole named Standing Rock Creek. It was and still is a beautiful place. An 8 to 10 foot of water, you can still see all the way to the bottom. My brother and I have many good memories of catching crawdads, skipping rocks, and flying off the rope swing. We also, unfortunately, my parents used these trips to get as drunk and as high as they possibly could. All I remember when thinking of the adults that were there are clouds of smoke, loud music, and my dad and his friends drinking, yelling, drinking, and yelling. The first real-life man-to-man fist fight, I viewed down at the creek. I still remember the two giant-sized men wrestling and all the yelling and all the screaming. My parents never explained to me what all this meant. I believe I was around 6 or 7 years old at the time, or maybe younger. I did not know that sometimes grown-ups lose their tempers and fight each other. I believe deep down I thought this might happen to me. This was just one of the many confusing and fearful situations I experienced at the creek. Another moment of fear and hurt was when a friend of my dad's thought it would be funny to put me in a headlock and try to choke me until I passed out. He called it the sleeper hold. He had a pretty good-sized bicep and commenced to choking me in the living room. My dad, of course, was laughing and thought it was funny because he was as he usually was on Friday nights, drunk. However, my 10-year-old brother did not find the humor in the situation, especially when I began to cry and he still would not let go. My brother punched the man as hard as he could, busting his nose. Needless to say, he let go. And when my dad was still laughing, the man who got punched wasn't. And this was one of the many times in which my big brother came to the rescue. Situations such as these only added to my fear, my hurt, and they were the beginning to me learning how to hide my feelings. A few years later, at the age of 9, my grandfather died. He was the glue that held my family together. My brother and I would sometimes get dropped off at his house on Saturday nights, and he would take us to church on Sundays. He would make us popcorn, let us drink all the drinks we wanted, watch sports with us, and just talk to us all night until he went to sleep right there on the floor on his big giant pillow. He's the only man at that time who ever seemed interested in me. I really felt love when we went to visit him. His house was the only place my entire family got together. I never saw anyone in my dad's side of the family except my uncle after my granddad died. I was 9 then, and I'm 29 now. It's 20 years have passed, and my dad has still not spoken to his sisters or his stepmom. The moment my grandfather died, everything in my life slowly got worse and worse. My dad's drinking got really bad, and my mom tried harder and harder to cover it up. She would always make excuses for him not being at home. One time during the week, Mom came and got my brother and I out of bed and drove us down to the bar. She went in and drugged my dad out. I really began to resent my mom for acting as if everything was fine. I understand now that she was just trying to protect us and do everything she could to help her hurting husband. One day after school, around the age of 12, which is the age I started coming home from school by myself because my brother was now in high school, I found a little bowl of marijuana in my parents' bed, along with porno magazines and porn videos. I would watch porn and look at the magazines any chance I got. As a result, I struggled with lust, intimacy, self-gratification, and expressing my love to a woman in ways other than sex. I saw the scenes in those videos and photos as the way love was between a man and a woman. I used women for sex in all my relationships for a long time. It also gave me a secret, dark world to indulge, a world that I found pleasure in and could still keep under my mask. The marijuana and drinking just became a way of life for me. My friends and I would smoke before sports practices and drink after them. I lived for the partying and rebellion. I used alcohol, drugs, sports, and women to cover up my fear and pain. It became my escape and my identity. There was no reason not to get high. No one there to say it was wrong. My dad left us when I was about 17, but to me he was already gone. When I was 14, a mentor and well-respected basketball coach of my brother and I died of cancer. My brother and I were devastated, and so was the entire community and the school. My dad disappeared as usual the day before and the day of the funeral. He came home that night of the funeral late and really intoxicated. He attacked my brother, and I came running in the kitchen and hit my dad with a long yardstick, a young hard plastic yardstick until it broke, and he stopped fighting. He threatened to kill us that night. He went outside to get his rifle from his truck, and he had it in the living room yelling at my mom. I can still remember my brother screaming and crying, "Why did you do that?" "I didn't do anything," and asking, "Why are y'all like this?" to my mom as she tried to console him. A friend of mine was staying the night with me and witnessed the fight. He was trying to keep my mom away from the dangers of the violence. He wanted to jump out the window when my dad got his gun and started threatening to kill us. This was after my mom had sent us to our separate rooms. I said no because there was nothing on this earth that could have made me leave my brother there that night. As I look back now at the situations that were taking place in my life, I do not know how I masked it all. I never told anyone. I never for one instant showed weakness or vulnerability at school or to my close friends. I was so angry, hurt, afraid, and confused. The world system of success and popularity fed my mask like gasoline feeds a fire. I was the high school football star, starting guard on the basketball team, and dating the cheerleader that everybody wanted to date. Or was I? Looking back now, I see the mask of denial and the false sense of reality. My ego was sky high, and my self-worth and self-esteem were so low. In reality, I was a scared, pot-smoking womanizer and a near dropout. I missed around 70 to 80 days a year, including half days in that number. Also, since my dad was gone all the time and eventually always gone, my mom just turned me loose. My house was the party house. I had a fake ID and a place to do whatever, whenever. There was a problem though. Deep down I was broken. I was lost and so confused. Just a scared little boy at the creek. Eventually, drinking and partying became more important than anything. My senior year, I had quit every sport and just became a druggie. Also, that pretty cheerleader that I was dating got pregnant. Not knowing what to do or say, I broke up with her. 2 weeks later, she called me and told me that she had an abortion. She said that her mom had made her do it. You see, I didn't live in Murray. I lived way out in a little double-wide trailer out in the country. My girlfriend had a solid Christian family and financial comfort as well. And Murray is a college town, so most of the kids there who go to public schools' parents worked at the college. I say that because I knew that we were poor when compared to most of the people at my school. I thought this mattered more than who you were. I thought what mattered was what you could afford to do or have: house, car, money, drugs, etc. I took that abortion as I wasn't good enough for her to have a baby by me, when in reality her mom was afraid for her daughter, probably was afraid for her daughter, and thought she was doing the right thing by protecting her daughter. It was not like I was there supporting her. I was devastated. I fell into a slight depression. The summer after I graduated from high school, I would commit small robberies with another guy to get money to do whatever I wanted. I really just wanted to be as bad as I could be. Anything to cover up the pain. My mom finally dropped me in a dorm room at the local college and made me start school. She most likely kept me from going to prison at a young age. After just one semester of college, the drugs, the women, the popularity, the nice stuff just could not take the pain I felt away inside, nor could it fill that ever-present void in my soul. Excuse me. I knew there was something more to life than what I had. I was searching for something to make me feel better on the inside because nothing else had been able to do that so far. So I packed everything I owned into a 1989 LTD. It was a big square boat. Finally, after 9 months of living in my car, moving from place to place, watching the sun go down, I would just watch the sun go down, thinking that I was missing something, trying to find something to change the way my life had become. I decided to ride back home to check on my mom. She came home, hugged me, and went to bed about an hour later, around 6 p.m. The neighbor from across the street asked me if I wanted to stay with her. She knew I was about to be gone again. She told me that my mom was really bad on drugs and that I could stay with her if I got a job until I figured out what I was going to do. I stayed with her for about 4 months, and her house was about 2 miles from my mom's house. My mom came to see me twice in that 4 months. I really felt unloved and abandoned, which was why I left in the first place. I decided to go visit my dad. God had a plan all along. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future." Turns out my dad had been saved, and he had just got back from church when I first saw him. Church, I thought. Didn't make any sense to me. My father had asked the church and everyone he knew to pray for me, because no one knew if I was dead or alive because I never contacted anyone while I was living out of my car. And some of them would pray in the basement of a mutual friend's house. A week after my father asked everyone to pray, I popped up. And then I came right to that very basement. The next day I found myself on the way to meet a preacher. The preacher told me about Jesus. He opened up the Bible, told me that Jesus had died for me, and I prayed to receive Christ in my heart that Monday morning. I gradually grew in the Lord and made a complete change in my lifestyle. About a year after being saved, I felt God calling me to the ministry in church one day. I started preaching in the local jail, and packing some neighborhood kids in my car and bringing them to church. I still remember bringing all those little black boys and girls in that old white fundamental independent Baptist church. I was on fire for God. One day while at my apartment in Murray, I got a knock at my door. A man and a woman I had never seen before was standing there. They asked me if I was Adam, and I said yes. They said, "We brought your mom with us. We don't know how she made it to her house. She was so messed up." They said she had been beaten up. I brought her in the house and stepped outside and called her dad. She thought I had left and came outside crying and yelling, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." We both just sat there and wept. I took care of her along with my brother who drove from Louisville that night. We went and got all of her stuff from the house of the man who had physically abused her, and I just knew everything would be all right. I was working 2 jobs at the time and waiting to attend class in the fall. About 2 weeks after we moved everything in, I came home on a Saturday night late after work, and all her stuff was gone. I found a note that said, "I'm going back. Pray for me." I felt unloved, abandoned, heartbroken, and confused again. I continued to seek God, attend church, serve in the jail ministry, and beg God in prayer to save my mother. After being arrested, my mother received Christ in the very same jail ministry that I was in back in Murray, and she is eight years clean now. Yet, I never unmasked and faced my hurt. I just kept doing as much good as I could possibly do and hoped that somehow the pain of my past would disappear. Eventually, I left for Bible college so excited and feeling in the center of God's will. When I arrived, I was met with a small paperback book with 372 rules. Awesome, I thought. Gotta be as good as I can. The problem was, I did not know who I was, and I was still masking the pain and resentments. But this time, instead of covering up them with drugs and alcohol, I covered up the fear and the pain with good deeds and a list of stuff I had to do for God to accept me. Except no amount of good that I did could take the resentments that I had towards myself and my parents away. One of the rules at the college was that boys had to stay 6 inches away from girls. We were not allowed to touch them in any way or be alone together. After Christmas, I started dating a girl in the college. That summer, I went to visit her at her home in Tarzana, California. While I was there, we held hands and hugged. I started to feel what I thought was conviction, but I understand now it was guilt and shame because I had broken the rules set by the Bible college. Therefore, I met with the president and confessed to him my actions. He laughed in my face. It's actually not funny. It is funny, but it wasn't funny then. And he said, "We would be worried if you didn't hold her hand and hugged her." I left his office confused and feeling my anger starting to rise. Here I was starving myself through extensive fasting, struggling to follow all the rules and live a life centered on a list of things I could not do. I was really striving to adhere to everything, and the entire time I was just being naive. This is fake, I thought. I'm acting like something I am not and preaching something I can never be. I realized that the leaders of that school knew that all along, but they did it anyway. My spirit slowly died. The scarred, helpless little boy came back, and I could not stand on my own effort anymore. I was literally going nuts. Finally, halfway through my second semester, I left Bible college feeling defeated, hurt, angry, and misled by God. Honestly, I cannot believe that I made it that long with all the past pain that I had and all the good I was doing just would not take the pain away. I needed to walk through all that stuff. Although a month after leaving, I went back to my old life, I am so glad and proud of the courage it took for me to leave Bible college, because it brought me here today knowing who I am, having found healing from all the pain, and having faced all the fear and character defects of my past and of the present. When I came home from Bible college, the devil was waiting for me. My pastor, the one who had led me to Christ, had just left the day before with a woman in the church. He just eloped. At that moment, I took back over and left God's way behind. I tried my best, I thought, but I just wasn't good enough. A few weeks later, I met my now wife, Josephine, and a few months later, she was pregnant. I had started selling drugs again, a habit I had picked up around the age of 17, so I knew I had to get some help. So we moved up to Hendersonville, Tennessee to stay with my mom, who had gotten clean from the jail ministry I started. God's amazing, right? I stayed clean and went to CR for around 9 months, but my heart was not turned back towards God completely. I just wanted to do enough to look good and make people think everything was okay. I just wanted to wear the mask. I did not want to have that intimate relationship with God anymore. I felt as if He had abandoned me at that school and led me to somewhere that I would be hurt. I had lost my first true love, Jesus. After Josie had our first child, we left and went back to Murray, where I gradually got worse and made it all the way back to that scared, hurting, angry 17-year-old boy. I would stay out all night, say mean and hurtful things to Josie, and neglect my son. All I wanted to do was get drunk, chase women, sell drugs, and act like a hardcore thug. This was merely a different mask to hide my true self. Eventually, I was indicted for trafficking cocaine in June of 2009. I went to jail, from jail to the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center. The state dropped my 35 years to a 10-year open plea bargain. This meant the judge could give me 10 years at 85%. The entire time I was there at the rehabilitation center, I was waiting to go to court to receive my final sentencing from the judge. A week after I came to the center, they started a Celebrate Recovery step study at the center. The Lord slowly but surely began to open my heart through the working the steps. I completed my first step study there and found healing. I honestly worked the steps. I received Man of the Month while at the center and was chosen to be a Red Dot leader. A Red Dot leader helps mentor the new guys that are coming in and guides them through the program. Shortly after leaving the center, I went to Pathfinder's outpatient program. It was there that I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, a book all about God. I started to attend meetings and have found many opportunities to witness and to gain understanding in the area of living life sober. When I went to court for final sentencing, God God revealed His grace by allowing the judge to give me just 5 years probation. I only served 13 days in jail. Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Like the rivers of water, He turneth it whithersoever He will. God turned the judge's heart. I've been clean and sober and seeking the Lord for a little over 3.5 years now. I'm a member at Long Hollow Baptist Church at the Hendersonville campus. I'm a leader in their CR program on Monday nights, and I went through another step study at Long Hollow, this time as a leader, actually 2. And I've been through 3 step studies in 3 years. Also, I was the director of Celebration Station at Long Hollow, which is a 52-week program for the children of those who attend CR. I co-led a Sunday school class at Long Hollow on Sundays and have sponsored men through the steps of recovery. In addition, the Lord has allowed me to be the T, or the trainer, on the Long Hollow Baptist Celebrate Recovery team, where I teach lessons every other week. I have found much healing through the open sharing opportunities that CR provides, and I'm pursuing the calling the Lord has on my life as a minister and counselor again. I will graduate from Lindsey Wilson College of Professional Counseling next December with my bachelor's in counseling. I started my practicum today at Long Hollow Baptist Church Life Works Counseling Center, which is an off-campus Christian counseling center. Josephine and I have been married for 3.5 years, and we now have 2 precious little boys. I've been faithful to my wife, and I am with my children every day. I am learning to face my fears instead of running from them, and face conflict instead of avoiding it. My mom and I have walked through the difficult times we had together, one-on-one, and are continuing to make new and happy memories together. My father and I have walked through the pains of our past, and are continuing to grow closer together. I am learning to love unselfishly, and my wife has been so gracious as to allow me to grow in that area. I have changed, and I am still changing for the better. I attend recovery meetings every week, and most importantly, I meet with the Lord. I meet with my Lord and Savior every day. I am learning that it's not about what I do for the Lord, but more about what He has done for me. In addition, I have found my first true love again, Jesus Christ. Thanks for letting me share.